What's up, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of On the Bluff. I'm your host, Christian Fowler. Joining me, as always, my co-host, Gabe Kuhn. A couple things off the top real quick, Gabe. Obviously, if you listen to us, you can tell this is not my normal voice. I'm channeling my inner radio man voice right now, so a little under the weather, so I can almost guarantee there will probably be a voice crack or something in there tonight, so just bear with me on that.
That's even when you're healthy. Even when you're feeling good, there's a voice cracker too.
It's true. It's true. And also, no Kenny again tonight. He's at the FedEx Forum for the Memphis and Missouri game. So just me and co-host and producer Gabe, the guy can do it all. He's the man.
And also, since Kenny is at FedEx Forum, we're not going to be able to talk about a game. We'll have to do that next week, and we'll get you all up to date on everything Tigers, our entire opinion on basketball. But we do have some drama we'll talk about here in just a moment.
Yeah, definitely plenty of topics to cover still. Any notes from the weekend, Gabe?
Wedding that I attended. I met one of your former classmates, Jonathan. So there's that. He likes the show. So if you're listening, Jonathan, appreciate you listening and tuning in. That's good stuff. But that's it, man. That's it. Nothing too crazy. I had my ESPN app open, CBS Sports app open, Fox Sports app. I was watching a bunch of ball at the reception.
Yeah, I think I watched more college football on Saturday than I've watched in a day all year because I was, not feeling well. So I was just on the couch all day Saturday watching football.
What's wrong, man? You got like strep? What we got going?
I'm not sure. It's sinus infection. Who knows? I'm not a go to the doctor person, so I just kind of ride it out.
Not a go to the doctor person.
I'm not. I've always been like that.
What that means? You're not a go to the doctor person.
It has to be dire.
If you're sick, go to the doctor.
It has to be dire for me to go to the doctor. I don't. I've went one time since I was 17, and that was when I got COVID in 2020.
You're a man. You're just such a man.
I don't even think it's that. I think I just,
This is why women live longer than men did.
You're probably right.
Yeah, like they know what's wrong with their body, and they immediately try to fix it. We just sit there and wait till it's a dire circumstance.
Try to tough it out.
We're feeling awful, like the worst we could possibly feel. Then we finally decide that we should go to the doctor. It's election week too.
It is.
This is an election day special, baby.
It is
election day edition of On the Bluff, man.
Yep.
Oh God, I can't wait till it's over. Just announce the winner. Let's move on with our lives.
I saw a tweet earlier today that was like, "Thank God the election is this week, so we don't have to watch political commercials all Saturday and Sunday anymore during football season." I was like, dude, absolutely.
On social media, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, on my TV with on Xfinity, it's ridiculous, dude. Just stop talking about it. If I have to hear about a freaking sex change in prison one more time, I'm gonna lose my shit. I'm gonna lose my cool. It's ridiculous. I'm tired of it.
Yeah,
just a bunch of stone throwing, man. And did you see what happened yesterday? And then we'll move on from this. Or over the weekend, there's a guy in New York who had his pet raccoon and pet squirrel taken from him, and they were euthanized. That's become politicized. That's a political talking point. Peanut the squirrel. Hashtag save the squirrels.
Everything.
Trump is a thing that's going viral right now. It's like, just seriously, like I ask this weekly, ever since we got into an election year, just like, when does the meteor hit? Just let it hit. Put us all out of our misery. Let's move on with our lives. I'm not move on with our lives. Let's just be done with this. This is ridiculous, brother.
Yeah, I'm not a political person in the slightest. Like, I wasn't raised in a household that was centered around talking about it or watching the news or anything like that. So, kind of my take's always, the world's going to keep turning one way or the other. So, it is what it is.
Sun's going to rise, but make sure you save the squirrels.
Unless that meteor hits you were talking about.
Yeah. Save the squirrels, y'all. Save the squirrels.
All right, Gabe. So we definitely got some football to talk about this week, and unfortunate, embarrassing, ugly, a lot of words you can use to describe the loss to UTSA over the weekend. What were your thoughts on this? Because we've been talking the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, last 3 games, 4 weeks, that Memphis playing the style that they were playing was eventually going to catch up to them. this was more in line with the Navy game than them going up super early and getting conservative. But also, I just felt like there were so many missed opportunities and missed moments in this game for Memphis. So thoughts on this loss? Obviously, anything you're playing for now is pride at this point.
Yeah.
What you think?
My term, I'm not going to just put a word on it. Obviously, disappointing would be the word, but like the term, I'm just going to say is same old, same old.
Yeah.
Same shit, different year, same shit, different week. You build a lead this time 24-14 in the second quarter. Then you take unnecessary, relatively complacent type risk where you run the ball on 4th and 1, even though UTSA is number 5 in the country in rushing yards allowed per game. It seemed dumb. And you allowed UTSA to get back in the game and tie it before you got to halftime. And then from there, once you got out of half, like you just saw the things start to spiral. Like I didn't have a lot of confidence after they came out of halftime and UTSA scored to go up 31-24. You saw Demar Derozan go down after having a big game. You saw the two massive momentum shifts with those 4th and 1 stops on just easy inside zone run plays. But they tried to flip the switch in the second half, and guess what? The switch didn't flip because you had a interception by Seth Hennigan, fumble by Rock Taylor. You couldn't get drives going. And quite frankly, I this is where honesty comes in because I have to do our listeners right by being completely transparent about how I feel. The switch that is supposed to flip in games against teams with pulses, it hasn't flipped in Ryan Silverfield's basically his entire career as the Memphis head coach.
Yeah.
The stats that I need to reference here, this team under Silverfield is 8-17 against teams above 500. And 0-11 on the road against teams above 500. That's bad. It's really bad.
Really, really bad.
And to be honest with you, I think everyone should be at this point. And I know I'll like the older fans, I respect what you have to say when it comes to, well, remember how it used to be. I respect that. But there's no 9 or 10 win season that can explain the 2 losses this year because you have more resources. Navy can't give NIL money. You lost to them, giving up 56 points. UTSA, all the talk this week was Jeff Traylor said that they have 6 times the amount of NIL money. You just lost to them and gave up 44 points. So 9 or 10 win seasons just don't mean anything to me at this point. It's about getting over top, winning championships, giving yourself a chance to be in the college football playoff since you have access as a group of 5 team. And anything short of that at this point just feels like disappointment. You should be running the group of 5. You certainly should be running the AAC, and you haven't been able to do that. So I understand we have older fans that listen to us and older fans out there that say, remember the Larry Porta era, remember all this stuff. And you can remember that while simultaneously understanding that everything has changed.
Standard has changed.
And the standard has changed. And we want more now. You should want more. Looking into the past is fine for relevant historical context, but I don't know if historical context can apply to right now where you have more resources than everybody. You're supposed to win championships. You're trying to get to a different conference. You've lost 30% of your fan attendance at home games since Silverfield's taken over. I'm not saying he's gonna get fired. He's 7-2. Like, he shouldn't get fired, but I think a real conversation with real sort of talking points is necessary at this point. And until he starts getting over top in some games that he's not supposed to, I just have to feel the same way that I always do. And that's how I'm going to be feeling going into the future. And that's unfortunate.
Yeah, and I think the most thing, like you said, is 0-11 record on the road against teams above 500. If you're going to be a successful program, when you peel back, because obviously with the record nowadays, you can be successful in this conference. You can win 10 games every year because the conference is so bad. You don't have to be a good team to do that. But when you peel back the layers, okay, who did the wins come against? If you lose 2 games, who did the 2 losses come against? What were the scenarios in those things? It's not good enough. It's not good enough. You have to be able to go win games like this. And this wasn't like UTSA is a good team. They were not in that statistic of being
they weren't. They were 4-5
and losing
or
on the road.
3-5.
3-5 going into this game. it's embarrassing because when you looked at this schedule to start the season, you looked at 2 games. You looked at Florida State and you looked at Tulane at the end of the year, and you said those are the 2. Those are the pivotal games. You won one of those. You still got 1 to go, but you have 2 losses to what should be inferior opponents in Navy and UTSA. And I know people are going to say Navy's been better than expected this year.
Just lost to Rice.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what adds insult to injury to the loss against UTSA. You probably had a chance to really put yourself in the AAC conference championship conversation, and now that's all off the table.
Yeah, that's what I was sitting there thinking during the game. I was looking and I was seeing Rice is leading Navy, and I was like, they really would. They would put themselves right there to have a chance. It would come down more than likely to a 2-lane game, and if that's a game they won, they would probably go to the AAC championship game if everything works right. And this team, they're just not good. This is not a good team. We've kind of tiptoed around it the last couple of weeks and been like, well, they're taking the foot off the gas. They're being conservative, yada, yada, yada. They're just not a good football team. I mean,
but we called Christian. We saw this coming.
Yes.
From a mile and a half away.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I'm saying. We haven't been able to come out and really say it yet because they're winning ball games. But let's just go back and look. And I think we really felt this way. The Navy game, I think we were like, okay, whatever. Could be an outlier. Let's see how and then we see that they lay an egg against MTSU. We start to get concerned. They beat South Florida. It wasn't pretty at all. And
everything was going for you. They had to move the game.
Right.
They were down their starting quarterback.
Right. And then you see North Texas shootout that Memphis has to come down the field, late and win that one. Same thing with Charlotte. They come down the field late. They win that one. They allow 28 points to a bad Charlotte team. And then I'm 44-36 to UTSA. This game wasn't as close as the score indicates. This was really a 2-touchdown win by UTSA for all intents and purposes. I mean, it was way too little too late for Memphis. And so at the end of the day, we talk about this conference and how the vast majority of teams in this conference are bad, and Memphis is right in the middle of that. They're right in that. They're not at the top of this conference. They're not an elite team in this conference. They're not what they were supposed to be by any means, and it's not – again, record's not going to tell us everything that we need to know in this conference because it's so bad. But if you watch them, just the eye test, they're not a good football team. They spurts where they're a good football team. But just as a whole, they're not. They've got good pieces. They've got potential to be a good football team, but week in, week out, they have not been that this season. I mean, the secondary is still a disaster for the most part. The offensive line is a disaster for the most part. Play calling is so out of sync. Yep. It's insane. You look at this game, Memphis completely abandons the run and then tries to go back to I mean, there's no flow. There's no feel to it. Just overall play calling being weird and non-consistent. So many weeks we've here and talked about Memphis just wants to sit back and run the ball and be conservative. And the deficit wasn't big enough in the second half to completely abandon the run. I understand UTSA against the run, but they just totally went away from it. They gave Seth Hennigan no help. He looked rough. He did not look good in this game at all. So just I know it's disappointing. I know it's a little bit embarrassing, but Memphis just is not a good football team right now.
Yeah. Now they're going to have 3 more opportunities. Rice, UAB at home. I can't imagine we're going to have good turnouts for that. I obviously would say go support the seniors, Seth Hennigan, all the guys that have been here for 4 years against UAB for the Battle of the Bones. But obviously that's not going to convince anybody. And I'm not here to convince anybody to go to games because I understand there's a lot of people that are frustrated with just a lack of results and getting to AAC conference championships when it's right out there for the taking. But then we'll see the Tulane game. But here's what I want to leave this conversation as. Then I want to move on.
Okay.
I understand to a lot of the people that are very supportive of this program and don't really understand all the complaints all the time where they, reference the Larry Porter era and how far we've come. I understand there's a consistency to this program that was never there before. I fully recognize that. I mean, I was part of the change. I was there for the first 4 years of this 11-year bowl eligibility streak. I understand how far we've come. If anyone knows it, I know it. I saw what this program was. 3-9 my redshirt freshman year, 4-8 the year before that in Conference USA. I know how much it has changed for the better. But I feel like there's people out there that are almost afraid to ask for more, to demand more, to realize that there's more for this program to accomplish. And I don't want anyone to fall into that category of complacency. You can't look at 12 years ago and always consistently reference that and say, well, it was so bad then, look at what we have now. When facts change, when resources change, when you see a stability, you have to start realizing there is more on the table to go get. And under Ryan so far, they haven't been able to get any of those things. And there should be a frustration setting in. There should be. But I just want to tell people, don't be afraid to ask and to demand more, quite frankly. Because this is not at all the standard of what this program should be at this point in time in college athletics, in the American Conference, in the Group of Five. They should be substantially more than what they are.
Yeah, absolutely. Expectation and standard has 100% changed for Memphis football. But let's switch gears, talk a little bit of Memphis basketball. Obviously, we can't talk about the game itself because that is currently happening as we speak. But we can talk about the Tyreek Smith saga and that it appears that it's finally come to an end as he enters the transfer portal. And I want to ask you this. We know what happened a couple weeks ago, and there's been a lot of stuff circulating around Tyreek Smith. Is it a good thing for the program? And I'll allude to last year with the Brown stuff with he's in, he's out, he's in, he's out. And it just, in my opinion, became a distraction, became a cancer to the team. How do we feel about Tyreek Smith leaving? Is this a positive for the Memphis basketball program overall?
No, not at all. I can't really shake it. Now I guess it's good to have like the his mentor Helion Boog-Knight out of here because he was causing a stir on social media, and it became a big problem in that sense. So like, okay, that's positive to not have all the negative voices around it at the moment, but there's still like guys out there on this roster that were friends with Tyreek Smith, that went through camp with Tyreek Smith, that are asking the same questions that he was asking on his way out. Yeah. So I don't think the problems are done. I mean, there's rumors about Dane Danger, and if he's going to be able to suit up the entire year with what has happened with Tyreek Smith, because now he has all the leverage in the world to say, okay, well, what happens now? Like he's gone. You guys need me. Front court is paper damn thin. That's another negative about this. You only have Nick Jourdain, Dane Danger, and Moussa Cisse, and Dane Danger and Moussa Cisse have already been banged up in the preseason. So like, you don't know if they're going to stay healthy the entire year. I can't view this as a positive thing. I don't think there's anything positive about it. And I think there are going to be reverberating effects from it. That's my prediction right now. But it is frustrating that it seems like all of this stems from just a simple misunderstanding. That's all it was. Seems like it stemmed from Tyreek Smith. This is at least what I heard. Tyreek Smith one day was sick, didn't show up to study hall. He got punished for not going to study hall. They started getting into a shouting match. They go back and forth. And then all of a sudden, because of being ran after study hall, Tyreek Smith's wondering where all of his NIL money is. They don't really have answers for him. The contracts, I don't know what they look like. There were rumors that he got $175,000 already, but he was going to make $700,000. And then you're sitting there like 8 points and 5 rebounds get you $700,000. So that crazy. Is a hell of a market.
That is so crazy.
But I think the worst part of this for Penny Hardaway, this is an inflection point year where he needed to avoid distractions. And he has had coaches fired 2 months before the season, a player go through the entire camp and then quit 2 days before the season. You have another player who's sort of thinking about leaning out, but maybe he'll play, maybe he won't. This is just terrible, and it continues this perception on and off the court. I want to make clear about this. On and off the court of a organization, of a program, of a coach in Penny Hardaway who overpromise and underdeliver constantly. From a win standpoint and AAC conference standpoint, they always overpromise and underdeliver. And then off the court, I think with NIL, that's the perception they're getting, for better or for worse. They promise these guys too much. They don't quite follow through on their promises. Guys leave. They have a bad taste in their mouth. So I just think it's all bad in a year that needs to be all good.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing about it is you mentioned the coaching stuff, but for the most part, this was about as quiet of an offseason as we've had in the Penny Hardaway era in Memphis. And stuff doesn't start happening until right before the season begins. I mean, this Tyreek Smith stuff started, two and a half weeks ago, leading into the season, right around the first exhibition game, and now he's out. So it just drama was avoided, and this stuff was avoided until as soon as the season starts, and that's just not when you want.
That's not when you. Yeah, I would rather have the drama, in
the offseason
months ago, right as camp starting. And this is not a good notch in the belt of Penny Hardaway when it comes to what he said this offseason. One of his big. They asked, "What lessons have you learned over 6 years?" Oh, well, I've learned to put out fires earlier. It's not a good start after saying that this offseason, but we'll see how it all ages. I will ask you this, and I'm curious your thoughts. Without him in the lineup, like how do they play stylistically? Penny likes to go 9 or 10 guys deep. He's not going to have 9 or 10 guys.
Yeah.
And your front court's going to be completely gone. But if you're going to go small ball, you'd bring on more shooters, right? More shooting. Yeah. You don't have shooting. So you're like, well, where do you turn? If you have some bigs that are out for games, if you have a couple of injuries, if they get into foul trouble, how do you manage this? I think they have enough talent to be a consistent, good team in the American Athletic Conference. But it's like the ceiling for this team just seems like substantially lower. I know it's just a role player. It's just a reserve 5, reserve big, and Tyreek Smith. But I can't shake the thought that this is really going to hurt what they can do lineup-wise. And that's a problem for a guy in Penny Hardaway who likes to play a lot of guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's really thin now, like you said. Look at what they have in the front court. And the really only offensive weapon they have in the front court now is Dane Danger, because we know Moose is not really going to give you anything offensively. He's purely, shot blocker, rebounder around the rim. That's where he's going to be. And Nick Jourdain is solid, as we've mentioned 1,000 times, but he's not a great scorer by any means. And Tyreek Smith was, in my opinion, really going to be your supplementary offensive big. He can do other things as well, but he was going to give you a little bit more offensive punch, whether he was, coming off the bench or however they were working out those rotations. He was going to give you some supplementary punch, and you just don't have that in the front court now. And like you said, Dane Danger has all the leverage because he is what they have offensively in the front court. He's it. Outside of that, they have no offense in the front court. So I don't know how you manage it. I don't know how you go small ball because, like you said, small ball is for shooters. This team is not a shooting team as of right now unless something crazy happens throughout the season. So I don't know. I think it is a big blow. I brought up the Jordan Brown stuff because I had seen that as a topic of conversation, so I was curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah.
And I get that school of thought in a little bit because you don't want people that are distractions on the team, but you also need players like Tyreek Smith to be a successful team, and they don't have him anymore. And it's hard to see them excelling in the front court now with how thin it is. Because, I mean, you have any injuries is kind of the long-term picture. If something happens injury-wise, it's going to be tough to overcome. But even more so than that, just on a night-in, night-out basis, foul trouble. We've seen Memphis deal with a lot of foul trouble in the past, and how do you shuffle that around if you have one guy in the front court that can play offensively and you just don't have much size as a team overall?
Yeah, your Jordan Brown example is kind of interesting. I don't know if it's the exact same thing, but I think with Tyreek Smith, like they're talking about, uncertainty with NIL. I also think it was a role thing. I think that's been sort of reported. I don't know if he really liked his role, and that's why Jordan Brown stepped away from the team and came back. But I'm glad we're not doing that. We don't need any in and out. You're either in or you're out.
Yeah.
Is that 100% or 100% thing? Mm-hmm. That's something that I think I'm glad Penny Hardaway is standing on. I don't understand too. Like there's conflicting reporting on this. Did he get dismissed or did he just step away?
Right.
I have no idea. Maybe it was mutual. I can tell you. I know the University of Memphis and Penny have said, well, he stepped away and we support his decision.
Right.
I know that's not exactly how conversations go behind the scenes. Now, hey, can I ask you this? Is there anything fucking positive to report? Is there anything positive to talk about?
Around in this program,
maybe Memphis soccer.
Yeah,
Memphis soccer. We have 2 regular season conference winners in men's and women's soccer. So there's that.
Yeah.
Shout out Lawrence Dockery, who covers them for Bluff City Media.
But on the football basketball front, no.
No, hell no. There's nothing.
Could be later tonight. There could be later tonight if it's Missouri, but if not, we're just
Grizzlies are playing some decent ball too. They handled the 76ers with ease. Jay Huff another 20 points. Did you see Scottie Pippen Jr. and John Morant both in the top 5 in assists so far this year?
I did.
Impressive stuff. So they're moving in the right direction. So there's some positivity there. But University of Memphis with the 2 main sports, with the money-making sports, man. And a time that it's so important to be on your P's and Q's, we're just watching them flail around in the wind. And I expected so much more this year.
I did too.
I expected so much more this season.
Yeah, especially from the football program. Our hopes were sky high. I mean, the writing was on the wall. I feel like for the football program that they had all this talent, and it just hasn't turned out. Okay, Gabe, are you ready for the second consecutive hot 3 without Kenny Stubblefield? Do you think we got it again this week?
I think I can handle it, brother.
All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back with Gabe Kuhn producing the hot 3.
No, I can fight and throw hands, you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, man, I can do that, you know what I'm saying? So I started saying, you know what, I want to get into boxing. And I just met a MMA coach, you know, and everybody call him UFC anyway, you know what I'm saying? So I just met an MMA coach. And like basically, like Brian Hall, bro, it's like once I started training, I found out how much I didn't know, bro. I'm always a person, I believe in the truth. It's like, what's the truth? Like, I believe, if you say you the truth, man, you know what I'm saying? What's the truth? And the truth was I couldn't fight at all. Zero. Like zero, bro. Like at all. I say the first, 2 years with me just like learn, like processing how hard, like how real it was and like how, like, you know what I'm saying, nothing, like you being angry, you feeling like everything you went through in the hood really mattered. Like you seeing people die, none of that mattered when I was grappling against this white kid that never knew nothing about the hood. He was choking me out. So I started saying, like
Trevor had your
ass bro, like.
Tune in to The Anthony Sane Show, Wednesdays and Fridays at 12 p.m. weekly on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
I have just words. One word. Grizzlies game so far. This is what I wrote down because I wrote them down because I wanted to make sure we went over them, and then I just wrote one word next to them. All right. Win at Utah. Santi. Exclamation point. Santi. Lose at Houston. Physical.
Yes.
Win against Orlando. Bench.
Fantastic.
Lose to Chicago. Damn it! That's the word I went with for the Chicago loss.
I don't think I can beat that.
Is that good? Is that good word association?
I think that hit it on the head, and it's probably the same. It's probably the word that so many people use.
Leaving the arena,
or turning the TV off when it happened.
Tune in to the Night Court Podcast with your hosts Rob Fisher and Brevin Knight on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
All right, we got the hot 3 produced and done by yours truly, baby.
Gabe Kuhn,
and I'm gonna handle this better than Kenny does on a week-to-week basis. We're gonna get to the point. We're gonna get to it. So let's go ahead and start with college football this weekend. Penn State falls at home to Ohio State. Let's start there because this was one of those games where leading up to it, we talked about it. I talked about it on G5 Classified, again, every single Thursday at noon right here on the Believe in Bluff City Media Podcast Network. When I talked about it, it was about who's going to fall short. And that's exactly what that game was. Both teams made mistakes in the red zone. You had a pick by Penn State at the end of the half in the end zone. Like one team was going to fall short because one team had Ryan Day, who was 2-6 against AP top 5 opponents, and one team was 1-9 against Ohio State. One coach, James Franklin.
Yeah.
Penn State's head coach was 1-9 against Ohio State. One team had to win, and it just happened to be the team that always gets over top against Penn State, even on the road.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this. I can't remember if it was like 3 or 4 weeks ago. Neither one of us have been sold on Penn State by any means. Drew Allen is supposed to be that guy, and he's not. He's not that guy. Katron Allen and Nick Singleton are really what carries that team. And you have a team as talented as Ohio State that can sell out to stop those guys and shut down the offense. They really, Penn State in my mind, never really had a chance in that game unless Drew Allen just played out of his mind, which did not happen because they did not score an offensive touchdown in that game. The only touchdown they scored was a pick six off of Will Howard early in that game to go up 10-0. But honestly, this is kind of what Ohio State Penn State is. It's usually pretty sloppy, pretty ugly, and whoever outlasts the other wins the game. And Ohio State just has more talent overall. I'm still not sold on Will Howard. I know some people are. I think if anything holds Ohio State back this year, it's going to be Will Howard because he just is very up and down, especially when you consider Emeka Egbuka, Jeremiah Smith, Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins.
See, that's the thing. This is the way I would put it. Like my buddy Kyron on G5 Classified always talks about it. They have erasers all over the field. Yeah. Jeremiah Smith, Emeka Egbuka, Carnell Tate can be that guy at times.
Oh, yeah.
Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson. Their offensive line's pretty good. Defensively, you have Caleb Downs, you have JT Tuamalo, you have Jack Sawyer. You have all these erasers, guys that will just erase all the mistakes you make coaching and all the mistakes that everybody else makes in execution. Yep. Will Howard's not an eraser.
No.
That's the problem I have. Your quarterback, most important position on the field, is not the eraser for your team. So can he, if everything sort of goes haywire and you find a good defense, can he make the plays to get you over top? I don't necessarily think so right now, but I think he's been okay this year. I don't want to
he's been solid. He's been solid. He's more been in that game manager role and mode than he is a playmaker. And I've never seen him be a true playmaker for large stretches of time. But he hasn't needed to be so far in this season, really. Outside of the Oregon game, he came up a little bit short. But there is a lot of talent on this team. They are a really good team, and they can beat anybody on any given day. But I think about on the Penn State side, it showed us that they're exactly what we thought they were. They're not a very good team defensively. They're pretty solid. Abdul Carter had a good showing in this game. But offensively, they're one-dimensional. And you still see people saying Drew Aller is a potential first-round pick. And I just don't see it. It reminds me of the Will Levis talk.
Reminds me. Know who it reminds me of mostly is like Tyler Van Dyke.
Yeah, that's another one.
That's what it reminds me of.
That's another one.
Highly rated guy, bigger school. They just sort of try to force it, and it's not.
Yep. There. And I get it. These guys are built exactly how you want quarterbacks built, and they look great in shorts, and they can chunk the ball. But if they don't pass the eye test on Saturdays, then they're never going to pass the eye test on Sundays. It doesn't work that way. Especially when you have when you have running back Nick Singleton and Katron Allen, you should be able to get your passing going because the focus should be on them, and they just were not able to do that whatsoever.
I know you brought up Will Levis, but at least shout out to Drew Aller for winning the job at Penn State.
That's true. Will Levis had a transfer from Penn State.
He wasn't able to do that. Will Levis was never able to do that. But James Franklin dropped to 1-10 against Ohio State, 1-13 against AP top 5 teams.
Yep.
I'm not going to say any more on that. Now, a team that actually is good against top 5 teams, that was not that good this weekend against an unranked team. We go to the cocktail party. Carson Beck and Georgia, 34-20, and it was closer than 34-20 actually shows you.
Yeah,
if DJ Lagway wouldn't have gotten hurt in that game,
they win. They win
for Florida completely. But they had to turn to their backup, and it just wasn't the same from there on out. But Georgia's a good football team. I'm going to say that. They're a good football team. There's one big part missing, though. The guy who we tabbed to be the number 1 overall pick in the 2025 NFL draft, the guy that was supposed to be the top quarterback in this upcoming draft, a guy that would have probably been a first-rounder had he come out last year, Carson Beck, he's been bad. I'm not going to say average. I'm not going to say above average. I'm not going to say he's been a bad quarterback. He had 3 picks in this game. I mean, between this game, Alabama, In Texas, he's had 9 total picks in those 3 games alone. I can't make excuses for the guy. Even the eye test tells you he's not confident in what he's doing out there.
No, not at all. And I think it's in his last 5 games he's got 11 interceptions overall. And this really wasn't turning over the ball was not really a problem for him last year. And this year, to start out the year, it wasn't. But as soon as they hit that Bama game, I think it rocked his confidence. And we see that on a weekly basis now. I know I'm not here to make excuses for Carson Beck because I've never really been big on his bandwagon by any means. But I will say, losing Ladd McConkey, losing Brock Bowers, not having great receiver weaponry right now is obviously hurting him. But more than anything, it's not guys not getting open. More than anything, it's decision making. The way he's seeing the game right now is just not clear at all. And so he's been very unimpressive. And the weird thing is he'll flip the switch in the middle of the game. So it's really bad stretches, and then he has really good stretches. He did it against Bama. He was terrible in the first half. He was great in the second half. He did a similarly against Florida. Really bad for the majority of that game, and then the last few drives kind of took it over. And you talked about DJ Lagway getting hurt. I think Florida wins that game if they have DJ Lagway. I really do. And it's hard to do that. It's hard to have revisionist history on that. But Florida was very competitive in that game, and they had to turn to their third-string quarterback, Yale transfer. He was terrible. Like, I know that's a hard situation to be thrust into, but he was awful. Like, a third-string quarterback on a college team, you never expect him to be great, but good gosh, he should at least be a freshman with some kind of, potential talent or, may turn into something at some point. That guy was awful. I mean, he was absolutely terrible.
Hayden Warner, not going to be he's not cut out for this long term.
No, he made one throw on. He was like 8 of 19 for. Just to tell you, what did DJ Lagway get hurt in? Was it the first quarter that he got hurt in?
I think the second quarter.
Early in the second quarter, DJ Lagway was the leading passer for Florida in this game.
Yeah.
That's bad.
But I'll say this about Georgia: Ole Miss next week's not going to be something like this. It's going to be tough.
It is, especially if they play like they did against Arkansas.
And I just watched Ole Miss just finally figure something out offensively this week on the road against Arkansas. Yeah. I don't know if people saw that, but I think it was 500 yards through the air for Jackson Dart and 6 touchdowns, no interceptions.
Yeah.
They had not been scoring very well. They had not been putting up enough points, even though their yards were very high offensively per game.
Yeah.
But this week, 63 on Arkansas tells me a little different. And you can't, if you're Carson Beck, you can't make those mistakes. Those are the only mistakes that are going to lead to Ole Miss winning that game.
Yeah.
Those are the only the turnovers, the interceptions. You got to limit them, or Ole Miss will bite you right in the ass at home. So
yeah,
it's gonna be an interesting one to watch.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, now one topic in the NFL. Your Cowboys are absolutely cooked. They lost 27-21 to the Atlanta Falcons to improve to 6-3. Cowboys are 3-5, and they have looked absolutely awful as of late. And to add insult to injury, CeeDee Lamb goes down with the AC joint sprain. Doesn't look like it's going to be long-term, but there is one long-term injury. Dak Prescott goes down with a hamstring injury, and Cooper Rush is probably going to have to replace him for the next 5 weeks. This is as bad as you could have imagined through 8 games. 3-5, Dak Prescott's out for an extended period of time.
Cool with me. Cool. It's all cool with me at this point. I was telling my friends yesterday, I was like, my expectations are never over the moon. I've been doing this for way too long, but I care less about this team than I have any other year outside of Tony Romo or Dak Prescott being, having season-ending injuries. Because you just watch this team and they're not good. And I know they're depleted defensively. No Micah, no D-Law, no Deron Bland so far this year. Diggs has been in and out, all this stuff. But they're just not good. Just watch them, they're not good. And you've got your head coach and your defensive coordinator were castaways that nobody else wanted. Mike McCarthy got fired and was out of ball for a year. Mike Zimmer got fired. He was out of ball for a year. This is what happens when you just go try to get guys that nobody else wants. When you have bad coaching, you're going to be a bad football team.
Sure.
And I know Mike McCarthy's been a good coach at times. Mike Zimmer's had a very, very good career. But I don't understand what they do coaching-wise. I told you this a couple weeks ago. I still believe this. Fire Mike McCarthy and go hire Ben Johnson. That will help you fix this. Because not only is a guy like Ben Johnson absolutely a offensive genius, but he's been under the best coach in the NFL for, under the Lions, under Dan Campbell. That's what you do. If you go out and get Belichick or something like that, you're just doing the same thing you keep doing. I don't know. It's just a team of talent, devoid of institutional control, devoid of coaching. It's bad. And you spend a lot of money on your two best players, and you're already wasting 1 year by just being stupid. By just everybody else in the world could team and tell you the problems, and you've got an owner at the top saying that we're fine, we're going to be great, we're going to figure everything out. And Dak Prescott on the sideline looking at Trey Lance saying we
fucking suck
is about as true a statement that's been uttered all year. Because I know every time after the game he's like, we're going to figure it out, we're going to figure it out. I'm glad he said that. I'm glad he's a realist and knows what's going on, because he's 100% accurate.
Oh my God! Well, here's the thing: you bring up the coaching, and the coaching, they should be fired. They're terrible, and they've been terrible since they got hired. But we know why they were hired, because they're Mike McCarthy, at least, he's a yes man. That's what he is.
Yep.
And he was going to do whatever the Jones told him to do.
And that's what they're going to keep
also,
getting.
can we just be honest? This is a recurring conversation, but I think it's more relevant now than ever. The Jones are the reason this team sucks so bad this year.
Yeah.
They didn't do anything this offseason. All you had to do is just go get a running back, go find some interior D linemen.
Just pay Derrick
Henry. It would
have
been okay. It would have been probably 2 wins
$2
better at this moment.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd at least be 500. And it's not like again, we always talk about like value and positional value and how much those guys cost. Interior D lineman and running back are the cheapest in the NFL. Yep. They didn't even do that. It's embarrassing, man. It is. I have a hard time, even though I know these coaches are going to get fired and they should. I have a hard time just like, it's bad coaching. That's the reason. No, it's all the way at the top. It's the Joneses. Then everything else is secondary to me. Secondary, tertiary, whatever you want to talk about.
Yep.
It's all the Joneses. Then the rest of the problems can be addressed. But the Joneses need to figure it the hell out going forward, because this has been, in my opinion, directly almost all on them. All on them. Because Mike McCarthy, with a good roster, we've seen him go 12-5.
3 years.
He can do that.
3 years.
He can get you to the playoffs.
Yeah.
You give him a decent enough roster. This roster sucks, though.
Yeah.
And they've had injuries that you can't do anything about. And then they didn't have anybody behind those guys to actually step in and play. And that's another frustrating thing, because they're going to be like, oh, we were just so injured. We were just so injured this year. Yeah, I mean, there's other teams that are just as injured as you, but they have people behind them that they paid in free agency to step in and actually replace the production of the person that's on the injured reserve.
Yep, no free agency moves, and then the Cowboys are generally very, very good at drafting, and they've whiffed on the last 2 drafts.
How about this too? This is how it's even going to get worse. I think I brought up to this to you this offseason. The tsunami was coming. Like everything's going to hit Cowboys fans in the face at once. And I'm sorry it's happening to you, but you're a realistic Cowboys fan. You understand it. They're 3-5. Cooper Rush is going to start for the foreseeable future, probably 3 to 5 weeks in my estimation. When you look at the hamstring injury that Dak sustained, Eagles, Texans, Commanders. That is 6-2, 6-3, 7-2. Are those teams' respective records. Then you have the Giants, who, again, with Cooper Rush, no one's going to just like accuse the Cowboys of running away with that game. Then you have the Bengals in a desperate spot on Monday Night Football in Week 14. These next 5 weeks are going to make or break the season for the Cowboys, and I can almost assuredly tell you they're going to break the season for the Cowboys.
1-4 at best. 1-4 at best.
Yeah, maybe 0-5.
Maybe 0-5. Wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, but Micah Parsons is coming back. Maybe maybe there'll be some.
Yeah. He's gonna fix it.
He's just gonna get a bunch of strip sacks for touchdowns.
Yeah,
that's how they're gonna have to score. All right, now final thing in the hot 3 before we get you up out of here. Demar Derozan and Drake had a beef in Toronto this weekend. There was a home game where they were retiring Vince Carter's jersey. Again in Toronto for the Raptors, and the Kings were on the road there, and Drake was on the Toronto Raptors TV network talking about DeMar DeRozan. They said, well, maybe we'll see DeMar DeRozan's jersey in these rafters after all the really good years he gave to the Toronto Raptors. And you had Drake basically say, if he ever gets a jersey retired up in the rafters, I will personally climb up and take it down. And really, clearly where this comes from is over the summer we had the Drake and the Kendrick Lamar beef, and DeMar DeRozan, being from the LA area, took Kendrick Lamar's side and ultimately appeared in the Not Like Us video, probably the most damaging track of the entire beef. So this is where Drake needs to get out of his feelings and probably not speak to it as much. It seems to me to sort of defeat the purpose of trying to sweep all this stuff under the rug to continually go after people that were part of this beef and pick sides.
Yeah, it's so recycled with him because it really is like any opportunity he has. How many beefs has Drake had over the years? I mean,
what was it? Pusha T. He got into it with he's gotten into it with everybody.
Was it? Well, there was Kanye beef too. I'm pretty sure.
Well, that's sort of everybody.
Yeah. It's he's got a laundry list of beef.
But this was the one where Kendrick was like, "Yeah, buddy, I'm gonna kill you from start to finish.
I'm going to absolutely bury you.
I'm gonna eviscerate you, bury you, and then piss on your grave." That's what I'm gonna do.
And it's just kind of disrespectful, right? Like, I mean, you're on a NBA broadcast. DeMar's one of the best players in Raptors history. Like, Raptors just haven't had a ton of stars in their time, and DeMar was rock solid for them for however many years. And then you say that, like, out of spite for Kendrick. I love the way DeMar DeRozan handled it, though. He was just like, whatever.
This goes back to like the Drake when the Raptors won the championship. That was what, 2019, 2018, whatever it was, 2019. And he was like, "We built this. We did this." No, like, dude, he does not mean nearly as much to the damn Raptors franchise as DeMar freaking DeRozan did while he was there for those years. So it's foolish, man. It's really stupid. And I don't know why he keeps bringing up the beef. Like, why he keeps, like, because it's adding more light to a moment in time that's probably the most embarrassing of your career. Like, I think that's pretty fair to say.
Yeah.
Most embarrassing moment of Drake's career. I mean, there's a song that was #1 on the Billboard Top 100 for, like, however many weeks, X number of weeks, that called you a pedophile in it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, just, like... Let everything just calm down and stop talking about it. Stop like holding grudges on these people for picking Kendrick's side. Like, just let it go to bed, and maybe it'll go to bed, and we'll forget about you being called a pedophile. Actually, we won't, but we'll act like we did.
You can at least try to distract from it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
I love DeMar saying it's pretty high, so he's gonna have a long way to climb to go get that.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll actually get his jersey retired though, so it might just be a null and void point.
Yeah, anyway. It might not matter at all. Yeah. Any other thoughts, Gab? Are you ready to wrap it up?
I am good, brother.
All right, guys, we appreciate you for joining us this week. If you're watching on YouTube, you can like, subscribe, and comment there. If you're listening, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, you can do the same there. Also, head over to bluffcitymedia.co. Check out all the articles, podcasts, and videos on the site, all things Tigers and Grizzlies. Once again, we thank you guys for joining us, and we will see you back here next week.
Thank you for listening to On the Bluff. If you enjoyed this episode, leave a rating and a review wherever you download your podcasts. Also, like and subscribe to Bluff City Media's YouTube page. Head over to www.bluffcitymedia.co for comprehensive coverage of Memphis sports and how you can become an insider.